Welcome to An American Homestead, podcasting live from deep within the Ozark Mountains. We are at an elevation of 2,200 feet. It's 10 p.m. Eastern and 9 Central, and it's good to be back. We are the late show, folks, of the Homestead Network. Glad to be here, and got a whole stack of stuff for you tonight to talk about. Talking about working on the homestead, earning a living on the homestead. That's the topic for this evening, and got a bunch of stuff, bunch of articles to get to, so let's get down to it. With me, as always, is Jamie, looking at her Pinterest page. She loves her Pinterest. So let's get started. Let's see what we got going on this week. Hey, listen, folks, if you're interested in listening to these podcasts as an MP3, like in your car, on your way to work, things like that, on your iPad, you can go to your favorite browser and just search for MP3 downloaders, YouTube MP3 downloaders, and find different apps that are available that you can download these YouTube videos in an MP3 format and listen to them that way. So you don't have to watch them as a video on YouTube. That way you can take us wherever you go. So that's people ask us about that all the time, and so that's how you do it. Just go to your favorite browser, whatever browser you use on your computer, and just search for YouTube MP3 downloaders. We are part of the Homestead Network. You can check out other great homesteads by going to the homesteadnetwork.com, going to their show times, and looking at all of the amazing YouTube channels that are out there, other homesteads, and subscribing to their channels, and also tuning into their shows like we're doing here. So if you like our show, you might find some others that you like by going to the homesteadnetwork.com and clicking on their Showtimes link. And last week, that website was down, and it looks like it's up and working again this week. So that's that. What did we do this week?
What did you do this week?
I worked on the solar kiln.
Yeah?
What did you do this week?
We did a lot of school this week. We've been just going hard really all winter long, but I feel like winter is the really good time to buckle down and get a lot of school done.
Yeah, because you're not playing outside, but we've had some really abnormally warm weather. It doesn't seem like winter, but a lot of times in the winter, normally you're snowed in.
Yeah. And I got some chicken canned. I got some more broth made. I've got a lot of broth, Zach. Mm-hmm. I looked back there, and I've made venison broth. I've made lamb broth, chicken broth, turkey broth, and is that all?
Beef broth.
And beef, yeah. So I've got 5 different kinds of broth.
Lots of good soup coming.
That's funny. I've never had that much before.
But it hasn't really been cold, We haven't been eating a lot of soup.
I know, but I use it for a lot of things. I put it in the rice today. I always love cooking rice with some kind of broth.
Yeah, I like chicken noodle soup, so maybe we get some noodles and make chicken noodle soup one day soon. Anyway, speaking of homesteading or homeschooling, homeschooling was there's a lot of stuff in news this last week. Betsy DeVos was confirmed as the new Secretary of Education by Congress, and there was a lot of news about that, a lot of protest, and she's very pro-homeschool, which is good. She's very pro-homeschool, and a lot of liberals, I posted the article on the Facebook page, which drew a lot of criticism because people don't like it when I get political, but that's just reality. There are certain topics we're going to talk about on the homestead. And she's very pro-homeschool. And a lot of the liberals, after she was confirmed, were threatening to pull their kids out of public school and start homeschooling. So it was kind of an irony there that people were mad that this woman who's pro-homeschool got put in as Secretary of Education. And by showing their anger, they're going to pull their kids out of the schools and start homeschooling. Yeah. I just thought that was funny.
I think that homesteading is homeschooling, I should say. Homesteading and homeschooling. I'm a homeschooling mom. Homeschooling is a big part of my life. It takes up a lot of my time. It takes up a lot of my energy. And I think any homestead channel is going to talk about the things that they do. And we're going to talk about homeschooling because that's part of our life.
Right. I mean, we're going to talk about it. And I know the other article I posted up this week was a woman who decided to pull her kids out of public school, didn't say what her political affiliation was, and the county came in and took her children and arrested her.
That's horrible.
So, and there are people who when I posted that article on our Facebook page for an American Homestead, you can find these articles on our Homestead Facebook page. People said, "Oh, well, there's got to be more to the story. This is probably not the whole deal. You know what's really going on here?" And no, I mean that's why we did that video, guys, of homestead outlaws, because people seriously are that stupid. I mean, there were people seriously arrested and thrown in jail for owning chickens. Owning chickens, folks.
They're so far removed from the reality of what's important in life. They're so far removed from the land that we were supposed to be living on.
You know, and so you look at these things, and these are really happening, and people are like, oh, that just can't, that kind of insanity cannot be real. There has to be more to the story. No, folks, it's really that bad in America today that people are being arrested for owning chickens. They're being arrested for homeschooling their kids. And it's just ridiculous. So that's the reality of what we're living in today. And we are going to talk more about homeschooling in the future. We have a number of videos on it already. We included some of that topic in some of our seasonal episodes that we've done for our YouTube channel. And, homeschooling is a way of life out here. And there are people who just don't understand that. And, even our local county here, they're trying to up the millage, which is the public funding for education here, so that they can build a new education center for the public school. And it keeps getting voted down year after year. And there's a lot of people in this county where I live in that homeschool. And they want no part of the public school education here.
I just think, well, I had to defend homeschooling this week, and it was a sweet little old lady. She has her idea of how she was raised, and that's fine. But I had to defend my homeschooling choice, which is it's okay. I'm used to it. It's nothing new, and I think any homeschooling parent has had to defend their homeschooling choice. But her question was, well, what about tests? And I said, well, the state actually did away with testing here a couple years ago. Well, doesn't the state care? And I kind of laughed because I said, well, no, I don't think the state cares how my children are doing. She's like, well, they should care. I said, well, they don't care about how the public school kids are doing. The public school kids are failing. There are kids that we know personally who are graduating that cannot read. So, no, I don't think that the state cares or should care. However, I think that public school kids can succeed if their parents care.
Yeah, it's all about the parents.
And so I told her this, and it was funny because she, at the end of it, she agreed with me, and she's like, yeah, you're right. And yeah, now that you mention it, and she had this whole list of things about how public schools are failing. So I don't know, sometimes I think it just takes a little bit of explanation to help somebody understand. I purchased a new homeschool curriculum this week. That's something I'm pretty excited about.
Just to clarify, do you know why I don't know if you know, but we know why they removed the testing in our state for homeschoolers, because when they originally allowed homeschooling to happen in our state, they instituted the testing because the public school wanted to show just how bad these homeschoolers were going to be doing on their testing so that they could eventually get rid of homeschooling altogether. The problem was the homeschoolers were testing so high that it was putting their top students in the public school system to shame. And so it was such an embarrassment to them of how good the homeschoolers were doing that they got rid of testing altogether. They just did that last year. And it was very clear by the people in the state legislature why they were getting rid of the testing is because it was making an embarrassment of the public school system in the state. And I was just looking at the stats because they were posting because of the whole Betsy DeVos thing, Secretary of Education being confirmed. Right now, it's only 12% of high schoolers graduating in DC schools, public schools, that are reading at the required level when they graduate. 12%.
That's scary.
12%. Only 12% of the kids graduating in DC public schools are reading at the required levels.
You know, I think in our area, the schools actually want parents to homeschool. I mean, they don't give them tools.
Oh, yeah. They don't have the ability to handle the kids.
But no, they would have to put in major funding to expand the schools in order to accommodate these kids. They can't do that. So they're happy to let us homeschool. I mean, they don't give us any tools. They don't give us any tax incentives or anything like that. But they don't make it too hard. No. This is actually a very good homeschool state.
Anyway, we got off on a homeschool tangent. What else did we do this week? I worked on this on the solar kiln. I was helping season 3, episode 6, Lyndon and Charlotte. If you remember that episode, season 3, episode 6, put up their 60-foot trusses. And for our patrons, I put up some pictures and a video on our Facebook patron page for that. We did that Friday. That was pretty cool. Went over there and they got all the trusses, the big trusses, 60-foot trusses up on their house. So that was really cool. We got that done. I got a bunch of straw for the garden Thursday. 2 big straw bales, gigantic straw bales. I lost about, 15-20% of the straw on the way home from blowing off because the straw was kind of old. But I got a lot of straw back at the garden, and we're going to be using that to put down on parts of the garden. We're kind of expanding our garden this year into some areas we weren't growing before. So we'll be doing some videos on that. Let's see. Jamie spent some time writing on some various topics. We got some new articles coming out on the website soon. And I got a new Homestead box. So I guess it was the Homestead-Box.com. Sent us another box for spring. I peeked in it today, and it had some spring planting stuff in it, which was kind of cool. So we're going to be doing a video on that coming up this week. And also, really excited, it's Southern Lady 44 sent us the seed carousel box from Go for Green Living. And I'll be getting that probably Monday and taking out a few things. I already know a couple things I want to take out, because I've been watching all the other videos that the other homesteads have been doing on the seed carousel box. And so I kind of know what I'm taking out, but I'll look around, see, and ask Jamie what her opinion is on maybe some of the things she wants to grow this year, or maybe some things she wants to try. And then I have some ideas of things I'll be putting in. So you'll have to stay tuned for that video coming up this week. As soon as I get the box in, I'll make a video. Speaking of Go for Green Living, the Homestead event is online. So I think it's, the Homestead, let's see. Oh, let me look it up. It's the Homestead-Event.com. TheHomestead-Event.com is the website you can go to. It's going to be me. Jamie's probably going to go. Maybe I'm going to talk her into it. Maybe we'll see.
I don't know.
The Big Bear is going to be there. J&J Acres is going to be there. Obviously, Go for Green Living. There's going to be a lot of people there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody. Full Spectrum Survival. All kinds of great guys. So and gals. So listen, if you're interested in going to this big conference that's coming up June 1st through the 4th, 2017, a few months away. 4 full days of learning, homesteading, trapping, preparedness planning, all kinds of stuff. Going to be going on for 4 days. It's at the Go for Green Living Homestead in Wedowee, Alabama. It's in Alabama. It's in the South, folks. It's in June, so it's going to be hot. But I hear there's a creek nearby we can get in. That's what Big Bear was saying. So that's kind of like what we do when it gets hot.
So it's actually all going to be outside?
I think so.
Huh, that's cool.
So there's going to be...
That's really cool, because I think about homesteading, you go to these events. I'm not talking about homesteading events, but other events, and it's always in a hotel somewhere, and they got all this staff, and they pump in the AC, and it's not actually, I think it's cool that it's outside because it's actually real life.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that may be uncomfortable for some people who are used to the AC and, all the comforts of life, too.
Yeah, but if you're going to want to be a homesteader, you should probably get used to that.
Well, off-grid homesteader.
No, but I mean, part of homesteading is working outside.
Well, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
In the heat.
Unless you want to, do all your homesteading inside in the air conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, you can work outside in the cooler parts of the day, but it's still hot in the summer no matter what.
June 1st through the 4th, 2017, you can get information at thehomesteadevent.com. They're selling tickets. All children under 18 are free. All children under 18 are free. So this is not going to cost you an arm and a leg when it comes to the kids. You're basically paying for the adults, and you're allowed to tent camp there. I think there's some nearby hotels or motels you can stay in if you need to. I will definitely be there. Jamie, if I can convince her to come along. J&J Acres again, Big Bear, and lots more. Lots more folks are going to be there. So we're looking forward to that. And we'll be promoting this heavily coming up between now and June. So you can plan on hearing more of it, thehomesteadevent.com. Let's see what else we got in the stack of stuff here. I think it's been really warm lately, and a lot of people are talking about planting early. Before we get to the main topic tonight, no, I'm not planting early. I don't do that. And I think if you start planting early, I mean, because I'm technically in the South. We're in Arkansas. This is the Ozarks. And we have a pretty long growing season. So even if I start late, I'm okay. But every time I've tried to plant early, there comes that late frost, and I lose what I try to plant if I get it in the ground early. And I don't like to clutter up. Jamie doesn't like it when I clutter up the whole house full of seed starting trays and plants and things like that.
We don't have a lot of space for that kind of stuff.
So that's why I don't mind planting, when I need to plant after things start, when they need to start. I'll start some things in the greenhouse when I need to do that. But
we don't have any direct sunlight either.
Right. Yeah, we don't have really a south-facing window, a good south-facing window in the house.
And because we don't have air conditioning, the south-facing windows we have covered up with awnings.
I'll start all my tomatoes and peppers in the house, but I usually keep them near the stove in Ziploc bags with moistened towelettes, the seeds in the towelettes, and when they sprout, I pull them out one by one, put them in the pots, and they don't stay here long. They go right out into the garden or into the greenhouse, and they do fine. They do absolutely fine. Been doing it for years now, and it works great.
We might be doing a little bit better starting some seeds in the house this year, but we have a 4-year-old now. We've been doing this ever since he was a baby. We've been here homesteading, and maybe this is the first year that he would leave him alone.
Yeah, it's hard to tell a 2-year-old to leave the seed trays alone.
It was impossible. Like, he'd either knock him over, not on purpose, or, he'd pick at it, or, he'd poke his little fingers down in it. It's just the way with kids. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll be able to do some inside this year, but not too many.
Let's see. So that's kind of what I'm doing. We got lots of good. We're going to talk more about planting and what's going on in the garden here coming up soon. The garden we've been working hard on the garden, getting it ready for the winter or for the spring during the winter. And so we'll be doing some more videos coming up on that. And I think you're going to like what you see. But until then, we're still talking about other things. Today, we're going to talk about working from home. We talked a little bit about it last week. We never really got to the main part of the topic. So I'm going back to the links that I had in the description last week, and they're in the description below this week, so you can check it out and follow along with the links. The first one is from the Homesteadology.com, work from home. And, this is one of the biggest questions we get, as homesteaders. How do you make a living? How am I going to make a living? I have all these dreams and ideas of working from my homestead and making my homestead sustainable. How do I do it? And the answer that we're going to tell you, folks, is that it's just not easy. You're going to need to make some sacrifices. At the Homesteadology.com, they have a work from home article, And it starts off like this. When you decide you want to work from home, there are some factors you need to consider. Self-reliance is really about control. Self-reliant people can control most of the aspects of their immediate life. Individuals who are self-reliant choose what food to produce and eat. They choose how to power their homes. Self-sufficient people choose where they work and how much they spend. They choose who they spend time with during their week, and the list goes on and on. Controlling how we live gives us choices. Or you can say the choices we make gives us the power to control our lives, and in a world where so much is out of our control, politics, prices, governmental restrictions, taxes, etc., having control in our personal lives is important. So money, it says, is the biggest issue for most people when they decide they want to be more self-reliant. Managing money is difficult for people. People tend to overspend, borrow, and get into debt. I think they do that because it's so easy in our society. There's so many ways that get you down those roads. There's always so many people calling to you and getting your attention that will get you in those spaces, those places of overspending and borrowing.
And there's also constant stimulation of what you should buy.
Right.
So to be constantly stimulated to keep up with what they perceive the society is expecting of them is the other double-edged sword.
It continues, it says they get themselves into positions where they don't have control and they are forced to continue to work for someone else to pay for all the stuff they bought from someone else. To me, this entire process is chaos. So to begin to step out of the chaos and into an environment where you have more control, managing your money is the number one task. And then they go on to talk about work. And this is a very short article. It's not a whole lot. We're going to talk about some other articles tonight too. But I've basically listed a number of articles tonight in the description below to kind of get you. I think you should all read all of them. We're not going to get through all of them tonight. But I think these articles will give you some really good starting points to put together what should be your list of priorities when thinking about making a homestead self-sufficient and being able to provide for your lifestyle. So continues on, controlling how we earn our money is the most important decision we make because our work life can take up most of our week. So if you're going to do something 40 plus hours a week, why wouldn't you be in control of this time? There are many ways to become self-employed, but the best way is to pick up a job that you want to do, that you can get paid for, and start doing it. You may need to continue to work for someone else, or you may choose to continue to work for I think that's an error in the article. But either way, get started on building your own business. And I agree, that's kind of what we've done here is build our own business. So they have some work from home options. And I'll just go down what we've done here. So my background is in computers. I build websites. I work for a number of good companies and I got a lot of experience and build a good portfolio building websites. And so it's not really hard for me to find work. If for some reason I get desperate, I can just post an ad on Craigslist and pretty quickly come up with a job to pay a bill if I need to. And so that's what I've done. And over the last few years, it's been tough because I have to balance my time. If I spend too much time on the computer doing that kind of work, there's not enough time to do the work around the homestead that has to get done. And so you have to balance it out and then slowly wean yourself off that as you build a business for yourself on the homestead. And there's lots, and the articles that I've included in the description have lots of ways listed to generate some income. Some of them I think have some problems, major problems. I think some of these people haven't tried these options. I think they just copy these options from other websites that mention them.
And a lot of them would be a supplemental
a way
income.
A way to supplement a little bit, a bigger income from something else.
Yeah.
I'll give you some examples of that as we go on. But that's the first article, Homesteadology.com. You can check it out, and it does list a few options for ways to make a living, and you can read that. Let's see. Let's go to the next article. Let's see what the next one is here I have. And it's from the Mother Earth News. And they usually have some really good articles on this kind of stuff. I don't have it open. I got to go ahead and copy and paste the link. So in the description below, you can find, it's called Homestead-Based Income, Key to Success. And let's see here. As it's loading, it's over at motherearthnews.com. Link in the description below. It's loading. It says, I had the good fortune to meet a young man who recently moved from the city to a country property not far from me. He bought 100 acres of decent land, and he's been bouncing technical ideas off me about building and growing things. One thing that didn't come up spontaneously is economics, and that's why I raised the topic with this guy. As a homesteader, economics are much more important than I realized when I started out nearly 30 years ago. This same oversight is one reason I regularly see new homesteaders fall into a sad scenario that often goes remarkably like this. Number one, visionary person comes to the country wanting to be part of a good and natural lifestyle. Number two, person has plans for pursuing small-scale agriculture as means of making the modest amount of money they figure is necessary for purchased essentials, i.e. a little bit of fuel, a bottle of Tylenol now and then, tools for the self-sufficient lifestyle, property taxes, etc. Number three, person underestimates the amount of money required to meet their expectations while overestimating the earnings they expect to come from a small-scale agriculture-based business. And then it goes to number four, the economic realities, i.e. poverty, force the person to take some basic off-homestead job temporarily, quote, quote, a job that is typically incompatible with the ideals that brought them to the country in the first place. This temporary job also takes up all the time, energy, and enthusiasm, most importantly, enthusiasm available most days. And then lastly, 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road, the visionary person runs out of enthusiasm, very important, and goes back to the city because their life is consumed by a basic off-homestead job and bears virtually no resemblance to the homestead lifestyle they set out to create. As noble and necessary as all legitimate occupations are, few of them mesh well with homesteading. In fact, a homestead situation is a definite drawback when you've got to travel away from it regularly to earn money. What do you think?
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
I mean, we've seen this.
Yeah.
So, you said you overheard a friend of ours named Jerry. He mentioned one time that 5 years. I mean,
okay, so we were just starting out. It was 4 years ago. What, 4 years ago? Yeah. We've been homesteading we've been off-grid homesteading for almost 4.5 years. And I overheard him say, now, I wasn't speaking to him directly, so he wasn't directing this at me personally, saying that this was going to be me. He was just making the statement that from what he understood, 5 years is the mark. If you're going to fail at being off-grid, you are going to fail by the 5 grid mark. It may not take you 5 years, but by 5 years, he felt almost guaranteed that you would be back on grid.
Yeah. So, but I've seen this as homesteading as well for people who, or they basically go back on grid, or they, give up, sell everything, and move back, or whatever. But 5 years. It's in a 5-year time that this happens, according to him. I don't know if it's true or not, but we've seen it. So the article continues. The economic danger was something that I hadn't realized when I left the city for the country in 1985, and that's why I point it out now. As a homeful homesteader, perhaps you've got the realities of economics covered. If not, sit down with a paper and pencil to consider them carefully. Even without a family to support, you'll find that thousands of dollars of annual income per year is necessary to cover essential expenses while also providing resources to build your dream with. The trick, as I've come to realize, is providing all the money and goods you need without leaving the homestead. This is exceptionally important but often misunderstood. The problem is that most people automatically assume that growing things is the only way to make homestead income happen. It's not. In fact, I've discovered that making the money you need from the products of the land typically involves trading a lot of time, effort, and risk in exchange for a surprisingly small amount of cash.
Yeah, it's so true.
Because, there's been times, I'm not kidding you, where we've said, I can't believe I worked this hard for this little money. Mm-hmm. I've never worked this hard for this little money.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The time you spend and the return of investment you get is so small. And all right, so back up. And I see, folks, the thing is you need to understand is this is the case with almost all things. Okay? Now, back when I was a child, it was in the 1980s. I was born in 1976. Okay. So when I was born in 1976 and growing up in the 80s, this was the dawn of the sitcom. Okay. Where a problem is presented on TV, the TV sitcom, where a problem is presented and in 30 minutes or less, the problem is solved. Okay. And so the TV sitcom for decades has molded America to want everything solved, every problem solved right now, right here and now. Okay? And so that's what the American culture has been formed to expect. When I was a child in the 1980s, this is before the American psyche had been molded to this form. My dad decided he'd been working for a number of companies in the HVAC field, working on air conditioners and heaters and boilers and things like that. He decided that he was going to start his own company. And everyone around him told him, don't do it. It's such a hard thing to do. Well, it was a hard thing to do. There were times where we had no money, but also no food in the cabinets. There were times where they just did not know where the next meal was going to come from. And, we were obviously faith-based. We were believers, and the Father always came through for us if you follow down that road. But I'm not trying to make this religious at all. I'm just saying that it was hard. It was hard work, and there were sacrifices that took place, things that we did without for a good amount of time until my father could grow that business. My father is still working that business today, and he makes a very good, livable income from it. He's about ready to retire. But he makes they make a good amount of money, and they were able to raise their family on that. And it took time to build that business. So the issue and the disconnect that I see today is that you have most of America, when they want to live off grid, they want all the conveniences of life, all the conveniences of modern 21st century American life right now. And they're not willing to make the sacrifices, and do without for a certain amount of time until they can build that up. When I first moved off grid, I told Jamie, and she has mentioned it many times since. Many, many times. Is that every day we work will be better than the day before it. So we're working every single day, and it makes every single day after a little bit easier than the day before. But you got to keep working. You can't stop. Because you're going to build, and it's going to compound. The mathematics of it all is going to compound, and it's going to get easier little by little, but you have to work every single day, and you have to do without. You have to make sacrifices. We lived in that trailer during a very hard winter for the whole winter, and we lived in that trailer for 10 months, that little pull-behind trailer, 25-foot trailer.
It's funny because we look back on that as a really extremely growing time. But I think that when we talk about making sacrifices, it's not permanent. Like, I never thought that living in that trailer was a permanent thing. We were working every day. But I think that sometimes when, and us included, when you see our videos, you get a glimpse into our life. You see a little microcosm of what it means to live off grid. But you're not seeing all the sacrifices we made to get to the point where we are today. We literally had zero electricity for an entire year. That's kind of tough.
Yeah, I would go to the gas station and charge my stuff,
or we would charge
it in the car,
in the vehicles. Yeah.
And that's how I would go. That's how I did any type of communication on the internet.
Yeah,
was go to the gas station. There was a gas station in town.
We had zero electricity for a year, and I spent no time online for an entire year. Like, I literally did not get online that entire year. All of my time was spent doing laundry.
It was funny because
hauling water.
She gets to the point where she can now get online again, and she's almost lost touch with reality when it comes to getting online. And what's it like to be online again?
It was weird for me to get online again because there were so many things that were unfamiliar, things in the culture that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
You know, brand new Disney movies that I'd never even heard of.
After a full year.
And I'm still that way. But my point is that you can't take a microcosm of someone and look at their life and think, okay, I can have this right now.
Yeah.
You have to be, and that, like Zach said, that goes for anything and everything. I think that something in our generation, Zach just turned 40. I'm about to turn 40. There's something that in our generation that wants what our parents had without working for it.
Yeah.
And there's a disconnect there. And it's absolutely not the way it's supposed to be.
So anyway, let's continue reading the article. It continues with North America has a cheap food policy, and this reality trickles down to the prices people receive for local production too. When I grew strawberries, it says, for sale here at my place in the early 1990s, for instance, I'd spend 15 hot, dusty hours working the patch for the same amount of money that I'd get from 1 hour spent in a non-agricultural homestead business. To put this in perspective, consider the price of food in Europe. My wife and I visited Italy recently, and one morning we brought our fruit for the day from a small shop that caters to locals. We bought half a pint of raspberries, half a pint of blackberries, 3 oranges, and 2 peaches. The fruit was lovely, but it cost us nearly $30. That's more than 3 times what we'd pay here at home, even in our little local supermarket that sells things at higher prices than big city stores. Cheap food is a wonderful thing in some ways, but it does come at a cost of making it very difficult for small artisan food producers to make ends meet. It's not impossible for handcrafted food products to compete in North American marketplace where prices are set by factory farms, but it's very, very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, folks, this is another thing I was going to mention earlier when we were talking about, some of these things where a lot of blogs, and I've listed some of them in the description below, so you can check them out, where they list like 32 or 39 ways for your homestead to make a living or for your homestead to earn money. They list some of these things like this. Hey, just sell your eggs. Folks, you go to Walmart, and they're selling eggs for $4.50 a dozen.
Nobody wants to buy our eggs.
The organic, cage-free eggs, the best eggs, the brown eggs, the farm fresh, the cage-free, organic, free-range eggs at Walmart, $4.50 a dozen. Now, the cheap stuff is like $1 or whatever it is. But you can't get people to buy your homestead eggs for $3.
No. We can't get people to buy our eggs. If they do, sometimes we'll trade them for
$2.50.
milk. But $2.50.
Yeah. That's the going rate.
Dozen.
But you try to get $3 out of somebody and they won't buy it.
But even then, $2.50, it's hard to sell our eggs.
But you're getting, and our eggs are way better than the cage-free, organic, eggs, free-range chicken eggs at Walmart.
Yeah, that they sell for $4.
That they sell for $4.50. Because if you take that $4.50 egg at Walmart, and you try to crack it open, you can tell the calcium is just not there in the shell. It's a weak shell. It just doesn't taste as good than your farm fresh egg from your free-range chickens that are running around your homestead.
I think that in order to make produce and other food-related items pay off on a homestead, you'd have to live near, I don't know what else to call it, but a hippie city. You got
to live next to a liberal hippie mecca, a college town. Now, there is a college town about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from us, where they have a really nice farmer's market, and they got a lot of liberals who live in that town, and they will pay some of these prices that you're seeing. But the problem is, it's 2 hours away, hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes away, and you're burning up a lot of gas to get there. Okay, and not only that, but it's very competitive to even get in that market, and you can't have, like if someone else is selling eggs, you can't bring eggs because that slot has already been filled. If you're bringing parsnips, and someone else is already selling parsnips, you can't bring that because that slot has already been filled. So they don't want double people competing, which is ridiculous. Well, I mean that makes sense because it's a liberal town, it's socialism at its best. They don't want competition, so it makes perfect sense actually. Anyway. My point is that, again, we have a small farmers market in our town, and I have talked to these guys. People here in this small town, all they want is donuts and McDonald's, and you're not going to get them to buy healthy food and pay the prices that it's going to be able to support you financially. What was the movie we saw? It was The Organic Life. It's on Netflix. It's called The Organic Life. It goes through all of the hardships that organic farmers have to go through and try to make ends meet to sell their produce to the public, because the public does not want to pay the prices for what it's going to cost for you to make a living.
But not only that, most people don't purchase fresh.
Yeah,
like not out here. They don't.
Well, this people here is just.
I know.
They don't.
We're really in an area where people don't want to eat fresh at all.
It's processed food city. It's all they have here. So that's what people want here. It's not a type of community that wants to buy fresh. But my point is that a lot of these articles and these blogs will say, hey, listen, you could sell your produce from your garden. You could sell this or that. You're growing this or growing that.
It's not a guarantee.
Unless the conditions are perfect and you live in just the right spot where you have a market for that, don't expect you to be able to make money on growing something and being able to sell it to your market, the market you live in. It has to be the right market.
Yeah.
So, and not only that, but even then, don't expect to get the prices you need to be able to sustain yourself. You may just break even.
Yeah, remember when we bought potatoes from Shalom Acres last year? Mm-hmm. They had a bumper crop of potatoes that they were trying to sell. They put up a ton of potatoes. I don't know how.
They grew tons of potatoes.
And they were amazing potatoes, I don't know if some of you know, but potatoes are one of the dirtiest.
There's so many chemicals they use for potatoes because the potato beetles.
So if you're going to eat anything organic,
potatoes
you should go for potatoes.
Yeah, if you like potatoes, don't buy them at the store. I know they're cheap, but they're one of the most heavily toxic things you can buy.
Anyway, so she was telling me we actually ended up purchasing some more potatoes because I wanted to can some more. And Stephanie at Shalom Acres, she told me that they couldn't get more than $1 per pound for their potatoes.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's that hard, folks. And they live in a pretty good area where they can, I bet it's a lot better, their farmers market's a lot better than our area.
And they certainly wouldn't have to travel as far to get to it.
Speaking of Shalom Acres, I sent an email to Chris and Stephanie Haas. Hopefully I'll be sending the seed carousel box from Go for Green Living over their way after I'm done with it. I'm waiting to hear back from Chris to see if we can do that. But I think he would enjoy going through that and making a video of it on his channel too.
They have an amazing garden.
Amazing garden. He's got all kinds of great stuff. I think it would be a great video if he went through that box and talked about it a little bit. So anyway, let's see what else. We got a few more minutes to go through. But the article is a really good article over at the Mother Earth News. What?
I do know that I think if you were going to go that route, the only thing I can think would be livestock. Selling and butchering your own livestock.
But there's so many regulations on selling that.
Right, but when we were in the city, we drove quite a distance to get to somewhere where we could purchase grass-fed beef.
Yeah, I did a website not too long ago called RR Wilderness Ranch. They sell grass-fed beef in the Dallas Metroplex, and all their stuff is grass-fed, and they've got a pretty good business going.
Yeah, and we paid quite a bit for half a cow.
Yeah, we did that all the time in St. Louis. Yeah, we would drive to get grass-fed beef. So, I mean, that is something you could do. But, again, there is some federal regulations and statewide regulations you'd have to consider where you live, some hoops to jump through. We're about 15 minutes left. Let's jump over to the chat room and see what's going on over there. Folks, if you have questions, feel free to post them in the chat box, and we will check them out. But you need to post them all caps. All caps. Need to be in all caps, so that I see them. And if I don't answer your question right away, please post it again, and I will try my best to get to it. I see we've got a pretty good amount of folks tuning in tonight, so thanks for coming. Really appreciate that. I hope you guys enjoy the show. We try our best to make it halfway interesting at least. Go ahead and hit the like button, folks. If you're listening right now to the show, go ahead and hit the like button. We really appreciate that. That really helps us on YouTube. Really appreciate that. Let's see. I don't see any. If you have any questions, please post them. I'm looking at the text now and see what I can find. And as soon as we see the questions, we'll reread them to you. So folks who are just listening. Zach, are you going to start making or using biochar? I don't really need to because we use our ashes and we spread that pretty thin over most of the homestead every year. So we save all of our ash. Especially the ash from all the wood stoves, and we rack it up pretty good. So I'm always emptying out the cans and putting it over the grass fields, putting it over the garden, everything. So we sprinkle it lightly over everything.
You know, I was just reading some of the previous comments, and I don't know what the chat has been going on because we've been talking, we haven't reading it, but we were in the place where we could not afford to buy good, organic, locally grown, all of those things. We just couldn't afford it. And so we had to make do, and some things were organic, some things weren't. And we made some sacrifices in other areas to get grass-fed beef because we felt that was important. And we cooked a lot. I cooked a lot from scratch, so we weren't spending a lot of money on processed food. But this is one of the reasons why we're homesteading.
Yep.
It's because we couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford to eat in the way that we wanted to. And so we decided that we were going to homestead to be able to grow our own food.
Yeah, I can't go to Whole Paycheck, Whole Foods, and spend the kind of money that's going to feed my family. No one can do that unless you're making a ton of money. Jaime says hi.
Oh, hi, Jaime.
Let's see. So we grow our own. I mean, that's one of the benefits of growing all of our own food is that we get to do that. So someone asked if we're going to grow sorghum again. Yes, we are going to grow sorghum again. It's going to be actually a variety of sugarcane we're going to grow this year. So we're going to do that.
We've been using the syrup. We've had a lot of eggs lately. Our chickens are kicking into high gear, and so I've been using eggs left and right. I made a quiche this weekend, which is always a favorite at my house. But I also made French toast, and it's been a long time since the boys got to have French toast because we haven't had an abundance of eggs. And I put the sorghum on it, so it was my homemade sourdough made into French toast with homemade sorghum syrup.
It was good.
And you guys, when you put a meal together and you realize everything in front of you has been something that it has been a labor of love, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very good. I liked it a lot. Mimo says, are we going to inoculate chip piles with wine cap mushrooms to extend our mushroom patch? Yes, we are going to do that because it's so easy to get wood chips around here, especially hickory chips. I'm going to, and maybe even sawdust with white oak, we can do that as well. But I'm going to basically put up a big pile of wood chips. I'm going to order some more mushroom mycelium. I'm going to inoculate that with some chicken manure and some hay, roll it all up together in a big pile and let it sit. And I think we'll get mushrooms out of that for the next few years. And we can continue to add wood chips to it and straw to it layered on there, and it'll continue to produce mushrooms forever. So wine cap mushrooms, very easy to produce. I did a video on that, a month or a couple months ago. You can check it out if you can find it on our videos on our YouTube channel. Why don't y'all raise hogs? We don't eat hogs. I'll just leave it at that. But my neighbors have hogs, and I feed their hogs pretty regularly. Whenever we butcher an animal, we take it down to there, and they make short work of it.
Yeah, they're nice to have around for that, but no, we don't eat them.
What is the new cat caught today? Actually, the cat got in a fight earlier. Our neighbor's cat, meaning
my mom and dad are next door. They have their own cat.
It's called Boots.
I'm kind of laughing because my mom, she's a cat lover. She really is through and through. She's always been. And she loves her kitty. And she's always defending him because I've been telling her that he's been chasing after our cat and trying to get her to fight with him. But she doesn't believe me. Well, I have proof today.
Today, she just bowled up and
she was sitting on the steps with me, And the other cat jumped up the steps. This is dark, and we don't have electricity, so we don't have any street lights or anything. So it's pretty dark, and all of a sudden, the cat screamed and started tumbling down the steps. Freaked me out. Whew.
All right, so Jackie Blurton says, we just bought 15 acres to homestead. Is it worth the work?
Is it worth the work?
Yes, it's worth the work, but you got to work.
You gotta be highly motivated.
Highly motivated.
And have some motivation that is, I've been doing a lot of writing, and I'm really trying to get this down on paper about motivation and your attitude and what all those things mean. But you gotta really, really want it. If you're not willing to get up in the morning, work all day, and fall into bed at night exhausted, then maybe you should rethink it, because it might not be for you. It's a really harsh answer, and I don't really mean to be harsh, but it's kind of the reality when you're first getting started that, I wish someone had told me that. Maybe I would have been a little bit prepared. However, I think that going into it, to just take one day at a time, and that's what I did, one day at a time.
I'm telling you, Jackie, put the time in, work really hard, work your butt off. And as it continues to build and what you continue to build adds up, you'll be able to slack off a little bit. But you got to get that first. You got to get the infrastructure built up first, depending on what you're doing. And I don't know what your circumstances are on the 15 acres. Is it bare? Is it got land on it? Is there a house on it? Or is it pastured? Is it forested? I don't know. But each circumstance is going to be different for each person. That's why it's hard to answer questions thrown out like that. But just work as hard as you possibly can and do as much as you possibly can. And the more you do, the easier it'll get. Let's see. Have you considered processing your sunflower seeds to oil? Yes, Lisa. I have considered processing my sunflower seeds to oil. A few years ago, we were growing lots of sunflower seeds. I love sunflower seeds, and we were trying to figure out how we're going to provide our own fats on the homestead. And I looked at sunflower seeds, and I looked at some of the presses that are out there, and the cheapest cold press that I could find was about $5,000. That's the cheapest cold press I could find, $5,000.
So how did they used to press it? Because I don't think they did. I was researching oil a while back, and one of the first vegetable oil on the market was cottonseed oil that they had hydrogenated so that it would be the consistency of lard, because that's what people were used to using. They were used to using lard for their cooking. And so they pressed the cottonseed into cottonseed oil, and it was hydrogenated. So that was the first vegetable product on the market.
From what because I tried to find, how they did it. Every time I try to find out how to do something, I always try to figure out how they did it 100 years ago. And we'll do a whole show on a whole bunch of topics on things I'm trying to figure out how they did 100 years ago. And I think that would be really interesting for people too, because I'm sure some of you guys are wondering the same thing. But as far as sunflower seeds, I don't think they did sunflower seeds.
No.
All the research I turned up, it's relatively a new thing, turning sunflower seeds into oil.
Because I don't think that their emphasis was on that. They had animal fats. I'm not sure that they really needed... I don't know. I'm really looking into this because it's something that I've been thinking about writing about.
So, anyway, the cheapest one I found was like $5,000, the cold press, because cold press is the way you want to do it. There's some other ones that generate heat and they're not as good. It changes the molecular structure of the oil. And so I decided not to do it. And what they were doing was they were buying entire giant bags of birdseed, sunflower birdseed, and they were crushing those to get the oil. And for a person who, if you as a homesteader wanted to grow enough sunflowers to make your own oil and get enough of it, you'd have to grow a ton of sunflowers, and you would need machines to process all the seed. So after I did the calculations and saw what it was going to take and added up the cost, I was like, nope, not doing it.
Animal fats are
Animal fats,
a lot.
folks.
I mean, they're where it's at.
That's why
that self-reliance is animal fats.
I tell these vegans, they're like, oh, I don't need animal processing to get by on my homestead. Well, wait until, you can't get your avocado and some of your other fats at the store in the middle of January every year. And let's see how you're doing with, lack of fat at that point. Because you're going to be trying to figure out something to butcher at some point.
Yeah.
You got to have animal fats, folks. It's just the way it is. Yeah, too bad we can't grow olives. I wish we could.
Yeah, that's so true.
Solar kiln is working great. Someone asked about the solar kiln. We should have that finished, I'm hoping, by middle of February. I don't know if we're going to make it. It's getting down to the wire. I'm working on it again this week, but I'm trying to get it finished before February is over. People asked about coyotes. I haven't killed one yet. I'm still trying. I think I scared them all away. Either my howling is just that bad, I don't know, but I went out there calling the other day and I didn't get one return call. And it was kind of windy, so maybe that was the case. Someone told me it was too windy, but we'll see if we can. Well, I'm not giving up. I'm gonna get a yote, folks. And when I'll let you know, I'll do a video when I do it. So let's see, and I'm gonna try to skin it out if I can. If I get a yote, I'm gonna skin it out. Jamie, have you tried waxing cheese?
I haven't made cheese yet because we do not have our own milk. When we get our own milk, it's something that I'm going to do. I'm going to make cheese. I've made butter. I've made numerous other dairy products. Cottage cheese, cream cheese, yogurt. What else have I made? Mm-hmm. Oh, kefir, milk kefir, but no, I've never made cheese, so I'm looking forward to that. But we really need our own milk cow to do that because I'm not going to purchase enough milk in order to make cheese.
Doing a video on animal fats. Well, a lot of the broth you've made has got a good amount of fat in it too. Yeah,
animal fats to me, I can show you a little bit and maybe talk more about what I've learned. We're still purchasing butter, so I do a lot of cooking with butter. We're still purchasing that.
One day, though.
Yeah, one day we'll be able to have our own butter.
We have a cow. We're just waiting.
The thing that I did, which was really cool, was that when I made stock, I let the stock completely cool, and all of the fat separates. And when the fat cools, it hardens on top. So I pulled all of that fat off the top, and I've been cooking with that.
Zach, have you ever considered using white oak acorns for chicken and turkey feed? No, I haven't, but we do have white oak acorns here, and you can almost eat them right off the ground when they fall. They're not very tart at all or bitter at all. The red oak are absolutely very bitter, but the white oak are fine. You can almost just pop them in your mouth and eat them as is, but I've never thought about them for chicken and turkey feed. Maybe something that we could do to break them up and do that. It's a good idea if we ever got desperate and we couldn't get our own feed. Let's see, there was another one I saw.
Somebody a while back wanted us to convince her
Meredith
husband.
said, I watched your video with coyote calls and it totally freaked my dog out. That's awesome.
Oh.
That's funny. What'd you say?
Well, somebody wanted us, I think, to convince her husband to try a composting toilet. I have an article.
Show him the bill of what it costs to put in a septic system. Yeah. There you go. Done deal.
Well, go to our website at AmericanHomestead.com and search for humanure, like manure, but with humanure.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article about that. It's actually one of my favorite articles I've written for the website, just because I try to be a little bit humorous. You can't really talk about this subject without getting a little humor into it. But I think it really does a good job of explaining why you should try one and why it's worth it and why we will never go back. We will never use any other method.
Yeah, Humanure. In fact, we just did a video on it not too long ago. You can check it out on our YouTube channel. You can get links to our YouTube channel at AmericanHomestead.com. I believe the Big Bear Homestead is going to be doing the Insomnia Platoon tonight, so you can go back over to the BigBearHomestead.com's YouTube channel, or I think it's the Big Bear Homestead YouTube channel, and click on that and join them. They're the late show We're just a late show. So, all right, guys, had a great time. See you next week. Love y'all. We'll see you next time on the Homestead.